Hello and welcome back. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating chapter of the Old Testament, Zechariah chapter 9. This chapter is a real turning point in the book of Zechariah. The first 8 chapters are full of symbolic visions about rebuilding Jerusalem after the exile. But here in chapter 9, the tone shifts dramatically. It becomes much more prophetic, looking forward to the end times, the coming of the Messiah, and God's final judgment and salvation. From a Seventh-day Adventist perspective, Zechariah 9 is especially powerful because we see it through the lens of the great controversy between Christ and Satan. It speaks not only of events in ancient times but also of Jesus' first coming, the mission of his church today, and his glorious second coming. We'll also be looking at some insightful comments from Ellen G. White to help us understand its deeper spiritual meaning. Let's break it down. The chapter can be split into 2 main parts. The first part, verses 1 through 8, deals with God's judgment on the nations surrounding Israel. This isn't just an old history lesson, it's a powerful illustration of a timeless principle. God is sovereign over all nations, and he holds them accountable. The prophecy describes a path of judgment that follows a natural military route, starting from Syria in the north, moving down through the wealthy and arrogant Phoenician cities of Tyre and Sidon, and continuing south to the historic enemies of Israel, the Philistines. The key message here is that God is a divine warrior who judges the oppressors and protects his people. For Adventists, this points to a larger spiritual reality. These judgments foreshadow God's final judgment on all powers that oppose him and oppress his people throughout history, culminating in the final fall of spiritual Babylon described in the book of Revelation. The climax of this first section is verse 8, where God makes a beautiful promise, "But I will camp around my house because of the army, because of him who passes by and him who returns. No more shall an oppressor pass through them." We see this as a specific promise of divine protection for God's remnant church in the last days. As the spiritual battles intensify, God himself will be our shield and fortress. Ellen White reinforces this idea, not by commenting on this specific verse, but on the principle it represents. She writes that God will protect all who faithfully serve him and that angels are sent to guard those who suffer for the truth. This promise in Zechariah is a source of immense comfort and strength for us today. Now we move to the second and most famous part of the chapter, verses 9 through 17. This is where the prophecy becomes intensely focused on the Messiah. It's a section that finds its direct and stunning fulfillment in the New Testament. Verse 9 is one of the most beloved Messianic prophecies in the entire Bible. "Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king is coming to you. He is just and having salvation, lowly and riding on a donkey, a colt, the foal of a donkey." What a radical image. Kings and conquerors of that time rode on powerful war horses, symbols of military might and dominance. But this king, the promised Messiah, comes in peace and humility. He rides a donkey, an animal of work and service, not of war. For Adventists, the literal and precise fulfillment of this prophecy in Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem is incredibly significant. It highlights the nature of his kingdom, a kingdom of grace and spiritual truth, not of earthly power and political force. Ellen White, in her book The Desire of Ages, gives a profound commentary on this very event. She explains that the prophecy was fulfilled as Jesus came, not as an earthly king with pomp and power, but as the Prince of Peace. The crowds that cheered for him were mostly the poor and humble. She points out that the nation's leaders would have eagerly accepted him if he had come with worldly authority, but they rejected the Messiah who came in poverty and humility. This highlights a central theme for us. The world often misunderstands and rejects the humble methods of God. The prophecy continues in verses 11 and 12 with another powerful message of salvation. Verse 11 says, "As for you also, because of the blood of your covenant, I will set your prisoners free from the waterless pit." This verse is rich with meaning. We understand the blood of your covenant as a direct reference to the blood of Jesus, which seals the new covenant. It is through his ultimate sacrifice on the cross that we are liberated from the waterless pit of sin and despair. Then, verse 12 gives us a beautiful title, "Return to the stronghold." You prisoners of hope. This phrase perfectly describes believers. We may face trials, tribulations, and feel like prisoners in this world of sin, but we are prisoners of hope. Our hope is anchored in the promise of Christ's soon return. Ellen White connects this idea directly to Christ's mission. She wrote that Jesus came to break the chains of sin and invites all who are captive to come out of their bondage, calling them to return to the stronghold. You prisoners of hope. The final section of the chapter, verses 13 through 17, paints a picture of God's final victory and the restoration of his people. In verse 13, God says he will use Judah as his bow and Israel as his arrow. Spiritually, we see this as a symbol of how God will use his end-time church to proclaim the final warning message to the world, the 3 angels. Messages of Revelation 14, we are instruments in his hands, empowered for the final spiritual conflict. Verse 14 assures us that the Lord himself will be seen over them, fighting for them. The power for this final work doesn't come from us, it comes directly from God. The chapter then shifts to a glorious vision of final victory in abundance. The imagery of trampling enemy stones and drinking in victory points to God's ultimate triumph over evil at the Battle of Armageddon. The chapter concludes with a breathtaking promise of restoration. Verse 16 says God's people will be like the jewels of a crown, sparkling in his land. And verse 17 exclaims, "For how great is his goodness, and how great his beauty! Grain shall make the young men thrive, and new wine the young women." This points forward to the new earth, a place of eternal prosperity, beauty, and joy. Ellen White beautifully comments on this, writing that in that day, God's people will be his special care, his own property, his precious jewels. This is the blessed hope that sustains us, the promise of being vindicated, transformed, and glorified at Christ's second coming. So, to sum it up from an Adventist viewpoint, Zechariah 9 is a sweeping prophecy that covers the complete work of Christ. It shows us his first coming in humility, riding on a donkey to offer salvation through his blood. It speaks to our present reality, where we, as prisoners of hope, are empowered by him to be part of his final mission. And it gives us a glorious glimpse of his second coming in glory, when he will return as a victorious king to destroy evil forever and establish his everlasting kingdom, where his people will shine like jewels in his crown. It's a powerful chapter that beautifully connects the cross, the church, and the crown, reminding us that our humble Messiah is also our sovereign King. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this study has been a blessing to you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this message of hope with others. See you next time.